2.
We're back with our workshop session. It is 6:00 p.m. Council members Allen, Clay, and Taylor are present. So we do have a quorum for our workshop session. And the first item on our agenda is consideration of a presentation that describes a strategy for the funding project within and around the 6 West project area.
Is Ed Wall on the call?
Yeah, he's on the call.
There he is.
Ready for me to get started, Mayor?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Can I share my screen?
I believe Ms. Moore needs to stop sharing so you can share.
You should be able to share now.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Mm-hmm.
It's still not letting me for some reason, though. There you go. Thank you, ma'am. Can you see that, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
So I wanted to start off. Road Street is a major thoroughfare between Camp Creek Parkway into the 6 West development that would go across Columbia and Yale and all the cross streets that go through there. And in order to get the development started, a lot of the prospects who are wanting to buy property in 6 West would like to see Road Street completed to give a main access out of the development, the 330 acres onto Camp Creek Parkway. And so BDR, we hired, who were the program managers for the arena, Jesse Frazier and Hector Morales. And Jesse's our main contact. And we asked them to give us a cost estimate of what it would cost for roads. You all remember we had bid the pedestrian bridge over Camp Creek Parkway between the Gateway development and 6 West. And we only got one bid and it came in at 18 million, which was significantly higher than what we were expecting. And so I'll point your attention here to 18 million was the main construction cost estimate that BDR had for Road Street. And it's 3,500 linear feet, and it has a bridge across Camp Creek itself. With all the soft cost, BDR was expecting it to be about $22.8 billion. You all authorized staff to send out bids, requests for bids. The bids were sent out to about 800 different bidders. On September the 1st, the city got quotes in from 3 bidders. Here were the quotes. CMES at $9,637,000, CW Matthews at $9,734,000, and Baldwin Paving at $9,788,000. If you'll remember, BDR's estimate for that amount was $18 million. BDR has recommended that you hire the second bidder there by not too much money, CW Matthews, for $9,734,000. They've given reasons in their letter why they thought that would be the appropriate thing. I wanted to share with you one last thing. The $9,734,000 replaced the $18 million on the construction. So we're able to do this road for about $9 million less than we had projected. We have decorative hardscape, landscape, a well removal and relocation of the Brady equipment, Brady Center playground equipment, a construction contingency, have materials testing and inspection, site furniture, signage, equipment. Kimberly Horn, major traffic engineer, their hardscape, landscape, irrigation, BDR program management, owner's contingency. Owner is the us, a 5% overall contingency. And so the city needs to come up with $13.8 million in order to complete Road Street to provide major access to the 6 West development. Staff has really worked hard at this. We think that's the first major infrastructure component that should kick off the infrastructure for the 6 West development. And staff would like to come back to you at your next meeting with the options for you to fund that $13.8 million in construction. Floor is open for questions, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Any questions from the body?
Just one comment, Ed. When we say the bridge over Camp Creek, we literally mean Camp Creek. We do not mean Camp Creek Parkway. And I think that's more for the audience. And I think we all know that, but it's nice to mention that.
Yes, sir, you're right.
Tributary.
It's literally Camp the creek, the body of water. And you can see here, Councilman Clay, 4,500 linear feet, underground utilities, water, sewer, that bridge we were talking about, conduits, paving, and sidewalks.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that we're in a position to save $9 million, and we need to strike while the iron's hot.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Wall? Mr. Wall, this is a little off topic, but you will be back to talk with us about how things are going since the start of the fiscal year, correct?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Fallord Bradley and I are working on end of the fiscal year, June 30th, 2021, those final numbers, and comparing that with the budget for 21 and the 22 budget.
Great. And when would you anticipate you will be back?
I think it's the first meeting in October.
Perfect. We will see you then.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Can we also have some feeling of our run rate compared to what was anticipated in the 2022 fiscal year budget? Namely, we were making certain assumptions about the GICC and the hotels and so forth. Can we get any kind of an indication about how we're doing? Because things came back, and for a while I thought, well, we may actually beat our expectations. But then the COVID variant came along, and I can't believe that we're doing nearly as well as we were, but we may still be doing as well as we had projected. And I'd like to have some kind of feeling for that.
So,
Ed, let me make a correction on that date. We're coming back on the second meeting, the October 20th. That'll give us enough time to get the September numbers in. On that, Councilman Clay, Mercedes, and I and staff have been working together to reduce costs because we did look at the first 2 months of 2022, and we weren't too optimistic about the numbers. So we were trying to see how to reduce costs across the board in the arena fund and the GICC fund.
Okay, well, I was thinking more in terms of revenue, but if you're sensing that revenue is down, then costs need to be down.
Exactly.
Okay.
What I expect to do is Althea and I will look at what we estimated, particularly for like hotel, motel taxes, revenues for the arena, FCC, and we will bring you a budget amendment, probably reducing those expectations.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I'd like to see how they matched up for each of the separate items like that. I think that gives us a good idea.
And
Yes,
we are GICC and Arena have already provided numbers to reduce the revenue and expenses.
Good.
Any other questions?
I'm good.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor.
My dog thanks you too. I don't know if you hear him. You probably hear him.
I do. That's great.
Item number 2, consideration of a homestead tax exemption for seniors.
City Attorney.
Thank you, Mercedes. So Mayor and Council, we have discussed this item once previously, and what we have again before you is a resolution that would create a homestead tax exemption for College Park residents. And this is the exemption as directed by Mayor and Council that would give College Park residents the exact same homestead exemption that's enjoyed by Fulton County residents. And when we undertook this task, I guess we had a choice to either simply say College Park residents will get the same exemption that Fulton County residents get, or we could say go by the Fulton County resolution and give our residents exactly what Fulton County residents get by restating what the Fulton County provision states. So we took that approach. And so the resolution that we prepared is pretty much verbatim what the Fulton County resolution is. And we've included in the packet this evening the Fulton County provision, which is, I guess, on packet page 30. But and you can track that language in the Fulton County provision with what we have proposed for the city of College Park, and it's identical. So there have been concerns expressed about certain inadequacies and loopholes in what we presented, which are obviously the same loopholes and challenges in the Fulton County provision. And I certainly don't disagree with anything that's been said in terms of it being problematic and there being loopholes. So to the extent we want to fill those loopholes and fix those inadequacies, then we would do one of two things. We would either rewrite the resolution, but in that case, we may be giving a homestead tax exemption that's different than what Fulton County provides its residents. And my instruction was to give or to draft something that gave our residents the same as Fulton County residents get. But fixing those loopholes would make the two provisions different. And that might be fine. That might be exactly what the mayor and council want to do, but that would be moving in a different direction than we have been previously, and not matching Fulton County, but doing something that's kind of similar, but actually different. And so, and if that's the direction that we want to go in, then we can certainly do that. A second option would be to, because obviously this has to pass through the General Assembly, and the local delegation could simply work with legislative council at the General Assembly to kind of address some of those concerns. And we could leave it there for them to kind of tinker and to get it free of some of those issues. That may not be, or may not be, an option that the council wants to take. So I guess at this point, I essentially need direction. Do we want to patch the loopholes, fix the inadequacies, or do we simply want to just leave it with legislative council at the General Assembly to kind of resolve some of these issues? I'm happy to do either, but it was not on me to kind of make the choice for the council. It was for the council to make that decision, because largely fixing the problems would result in College Park residents getting an exemption that's different than what Fulton County provides. And if that's what the council wants to do, then we can certainly do that.
Mayor, may I make a comment at this
Certainly.
point? Well, I'm the guilty party. I don't know, maybe other people found loopholes, but I know I found loopholes. And first off, let me say that I think the council totally supports giving an exemption. Certainly I do. And I've had that feeling. I can't believe there is anybody on council that doesn't support that. I believe what the council thinks they are intending to do when they support this is to address people in the community who are living on a fixed income. They are living on an income that is not terribly grand. And basically, we were saying, we're going to give you an exemption if, however you get your benefit, whether it be from Social Security or Railroad Retirement Fund or a combination thereof, or some kind of annuity from the company that you worked for, whatever, however you come up with that number, that number does not exceed what you would get if you were on Social Security. Now, there's a certain set of complexities there because what you get on Social Security is dependent.
So right now I'm going for $200 but
We've got somebody on the line here that is, okay. So what you get from Social Security, I think those of us who are on Social Security, including myself, know that it varies depending on a lot of circumstances. But I'm just trying to keep it simple here. So I think that was our intent. If anybody on council disagrees with that, this would be a good place to jump in, because it's my impression that I think that's what we all intended.
I have some problems with loopholes. I don't know what their loopholes were, but you know, when you say each resident of College Park who is over 70 years old or over or disabled, how do you define who's going to decide on the disabled bit? I mean, is it going to be a letter from the doctor? I mean, have we got all of those loopholes tied up?
Ken, those provisions are taken care of. If you'd excuse me for jumping back in, but what I wanted to say was what I said true, despite the kinds of things you're talking about. Would you agree with that? That that's what we were trying to do?
Well, I agree. You know, I can't speak for everybody,
yeah, okay.
But I agree. I think that's what we want to do.
Okay. Now let me tell you what the problem is with. There are the kind of loopholes that they're in the complexities that you're talking about are there, but I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about something much more fundamental. If you go to packet page 26, which is our wording, we could also go to the Fulton County wording since it's essentially the same, but if you go to our wording and starts on packet page 25. And we define income on line 19 on packet page 25 as being, and what I've done, I parsed it by just highlighting keywords that are relevant to this issue. It's a very long sentence. It's multiple lines long. So to simplify it, let me read it the way I think we need to understand it. Income means adjusted gross income, except for the purposes of this section, shall include only benefits which exceed the maximum amount which may be received under the Federal Social Security Act. So this says, first off, that we're going to use adjusted gross income. Secondly, that the only thing that we're going to count in adjusted gross income is how much more you make than what you can get from Social Security. Not what you get from Social Security, but how much more you're making above that. Maybe from Railroad Retirement Fund or your company pension or something of that nature. Then it goes on to say that the exemption shall only be granted if that person's income, which is adjusted gross income as we've defined it, does not exceed the maximum amount which may be received under the Federal Social Security Act. So let's say that under Social Security, just for talking purposes, I could get $20,000 a year. That was my Social Security allowance. And let's say that in addition to Social Security, I had a pension. I'd worked for a company and I got a pension in addition to Social Security. And let's just say that pension was $10,000 a year. So my total on my tax return, federal return, my adjusted gross income might be $30,000 if you didn't have a lot of other stuff coming in. Might be $30,000. But because I was getting above that $10,000, and that's the only thing that was being counted in adjusted gross income, I'd be entitled to get an exemption, even though I was actually getting $30,000. And in fact, if you read the language, I could be getting as much as $40,000. So that's one issue. So what we're really approving, if we approve this language, we're really approving an exemption for people to get twice as much than they can get from Social Security. If they can get an additional amount equal to what they can get from Social Security from another source and still be exempt. Okay. Now let me give you one more example. I could have a $2
Councilman
million.
Let me ask, is the body troubled by that? Is that a problem?
I think it depends. You know what I mean? I think we all want the same thing. And what Councilman Clay is saying, I think we should keep on working at this to figure out those loopholes that we talking about trying to close them. You know what I mean? It could be a problem, then it could be, well, you know, it is a help for some people, but it could be a hindrance for somebody else. I think we got a while to work on this. I think we still should work on it and table it until it's time to really make it happen. But I understand where Council Clay is coming from.
When is the legislature? It's going to be 22 when they look at it.
In January, they reconvene in January.
So we have to have it to them by when? By January?
Well, we would need to handle it by our first meeting in December, right, Mr. Denmark? I mean, that is our last meeting of the year.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can I continue with my example?
Please, go ahead.
So let's say I have a $2 million house. And let's say I have a $10 million portfolio. And I'm making maybe $500,000 a year on my $10 million portfolio. But it's not a retirement fund. It's not railroad retirement. It's not Social Security. None of that. That does not get counted in this definition of adjusted gross income. So we could be giving this tax exemption. And in fact, if we do a good job of being open in our public meeting, which we are now, I would think we could have a lot of millionaires that might want to come to College Park. Because on top of that, they could buy a really big house and get free property taxes on it and not have to worry about it one bit. And that's the problem. Now that same problem, since we copy the word directly from Fulton County, that same problem exists with Fulton County. Now, somewhere in there in the Fulton County legislation, and that was what was enacted, I guess, by the state legislature as part of the local legislation. Somewhere in that, somebody gets appointed, the council, the representative of the council, whatever, or the board, to make that decision. Now, maybe they're making the decision the same way we made it, or we thought we were doing. That, hey, if you're just on Social Security or the equivalent, we're going to give you a free tax exemption for the total value of your property. Maybe that's the way they're making the decision. Maybe they're not. Another problem I have in there is it says that the decision only gets made once and then it renews automatically every year. Well, what if your financial situation changes? What if you win the lottery? What if you deliberately game the system so that the year that you make the request, you have a very low income? So now then next year you get back to normal and you've got a really great income, but you don't have to put in a new request each year. Oh yeah, but there is a provision in there. The provision says that, like a good scout, if your financial condition changes, you will report to the county, or in our case, the city, that your financial condition changed. And so, hey, you know, it's Scout's honor that you'll report that. I would submit that even if people are totally honest and you're elderly and your financial condition changes, and you're a perfectly honest person, go to church every Sunday, just want to do the right thing, you're probably going to forget that, oh yeah, that's right, 5 years ago I got this exemption, and I really should go back and tell them that I shouldn't get it anymore. And one other issue with this is that you don't have to submit your federal tax return. Lots of other things that I've been involved in, at least, they want to see my federal tax return. The state wants to see my federal tax return. I have to attach it to my, I do my own taxes. So I have to attach it to my own federal tax return to my state tax return, so they know that everything's on the up and up and I haven't made any mistakes, et cetera, et cetera. And if I did, I'm going to get in trouble with the feds before I get in trouble with them. But you don't have to do that here. You do not have to submit that. And not only do you not have to submit it, but you can give your delegee responsibility for certifying that your income isn't any more than the allowed amount. No proof required, just a certified statement, as I read it. Now, maybe I'm wrong, that that's the case. So I got a whole bunch of problems with this. And personally, I think we ought to figure out what we really want to do. Do we want to, as the mayor was possibly suggesting, maybe we want to make it twice the amount of what you would get with Social Security. And in that case, we can leave some of that wording the same. But I've got a real problem with other income sources not being included. The fact that the only thing in that adjusted gross income is allowed is your overage. It doesn't include your proceeds from stock sales. It doesn't include anything like that. So it's a real bonus if you could work it right. It's a real bonus for people that are very well to do, which are not the people that we are trying to help. And that's pretty much sums it up, guys. I think we need to write our own ordinance. I think we need to take the loopholes out. And I think we ought to work closely with the state, our state legislative, local legislation people, to make sure that what actually gets enacted into law is what we want. Because I can't believe that when Fulton County put this together, that was their intent. And I can't speak to that. I have no right to speak to that, but it just doesn't make sense. So that's it.
I'm looking at, I had to pull it up to see how much I paid in city taxes last year. And it was $381.60. Now I recognize that there are homes in this city that are certainly fancier than mine. I don't foresee people coming here, even if you have a house that is 3 or 4 times that, to come and try to do an end around for $1,000 or $1,500. I just don't see that moving to College Park is worth it if that is your only goal. Now, there's lots of great reasons to move to College Park. We can go in and out on that like all day long. We're cheerleaders here for certain. But I don't know that the concerns of what might happen in this, especially if we track with Fulton County, are ones that would necessarily that would prompt us to go in a completely different direction. That's just my opinion, though. I'm curious what the rest of the body thinks.
Who is going to be checking this from our city? Who's going to be looking to make sure that everything is correct on the paperwork? They're submitting all of this. Who is going to be doing that?
I mean, I think that would be the responsibility of Mr. Latona, would it not?
It would be.
And so that was one thing that Councilman Clay, when you're saying that people, that we're not necessarily obligated to do much beyond signing up that first year, is that if we're going to obligate people to do more, then we need to also have the resources in place to make sure we're not having so much fall on one individual's shoulders.
I guess that's where I was going with that. Yeah. And if they submit paperwork, do we take everything that they say? Do we need to check, like, do they need to, I agree. Do they need to submit IRS? What if they don't file taxes? What if they haven't made any money in the past year? With COVID, they've been out of work. How do you handle that? I mean, there's lots of questions that I think we probably need to, I hate to say we need to push this back and take another look later on. I don't know how we do that, but
I think we're making bad legislation, guys. I'm sorry, Derek.
I think that's what we need to do, look more into it, because it ain't like we're in a rush to get it done right now. We got, let's say, the December, I guess, to vote on it, because we're not voting tonight, right?
No.
So I think we got a little time to think about it. But do we have any numbers of how many people right now that do the homestead in College Park right now? Do we have numbers on that?
You mean that are eligible for the Fulton County exemption?
Yes,
I know-
good
I remember
evening.
it being 55,000.
Hold on,
Phil Latona is on the
Mr.
line.
Latona is here. Go ahead, Mr. Latona.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So on the Fulton County side of College Park, we have 1,113 property owners that are receiving the College Park homestead exemption.
Okay.
So it's about 1/4 of the total tax parcel quantity on College Park, because we have about 4,055 properties, but there's 1,113 residents that get homestead. That is based off the 2020 tax digest.
Now,
I don't know
Phil,
what would be for 2021. Yes, Councilman Clay.
Phil, as a result of that homestead tax exemption, they get a reduction in their taxes.
That is correct.
But if they're in a very inexpensive home, I think the homestead exemption was something like $40,000, if I remember rightly. I could be wrong on that.
You're correct.
So that was the exemption in the assessed valuation of the home, which is already at 40% of the value of the home, if I remember rightly. But in any event, what would that number be, do you think, if instead of getting a reduction of $40,000 in the assessed value of their home, they got the total assessed value of their home off? Because if they're very close to it, the numbers are very much the same. If their house is worth $50,000, let's say, which is hard to believe these days, the way prices have been going up. But if it's $50,000 and they've already got an exemption for 40, then heck yeah, they're only paying on $10,000. But if they have a $200,000 house and they're getting an exemption of 40, and then all of a sudden they get a total exemption, they're getting an exemption on a 200,000 instead of an exemption on 40,000. And that makes a big difference in the amount of tax that they pay.
That is correct. The $40,000 of assessed value credit currently has a dollar value of $504.76. The total amount of homestead credit for the 2020 tax year, I'm going to round up to the nearest thousand, was $575,000 that we abated through the homestead exemption credits. But as you alluded to, the credit of 40,000, which pretty much encompasses everyone. Again, there's two other categories: disabled veterans and surviving spouses of emergency services worker killed in action, police or fire. They get a higher threshold. But for the most part, yeah, the higher the property value, they will max out at the 40,000 assessment. And that is, fair market value, whatever that number may be. 40% of that number is their taxable. If that's over 40, they pay the difference of what it's over. So yeah, I would not be able to give you a calculation until I had concrete numbers to look at.
Do you think you would exceed $100,000, Phil?
I'm sorry, Councilman Gay?
If you had to approximate it, because when we first started this dialogue, you thought it was under 70,000. Do you think it would exceed 100,000?
Well, when we first did the analysis, we were trying to kind of mirror the Fulton County system, where I think we were looking over 65 and over 70 categories. I don't want to commit because with property values going up.
It's just a yes or no, sir. Yeah, do you think it would?
Wait, hold on. Let him finish. Let him finish his answer. Mr. Latona, you said
yeah. I mean, it would be hard to guesstimate whether it would be under 100,000 or not based on property values, because that is set by the county assessor's office, and I haven't gotten those numbers yet for 2021. I mean, I'd like to believe it possibly would be under 100,000, but it all depends on assessment levels, which we don't control.
All right, Phil, didn't you, how many houses did you say were in this? How many people were getting this? Residences were getting it?
We have about 1,100, a little over 1,100.
1,100. Let's just say that each of those houses averaged out, that those houses averaged out to 100,000 apiece. So
well, then if you take, then you'd have no tax base, because 40% of 100,000 is 40,000. We're giving 40,000
400,000.
I'm sorry.
If you have 1,100 and each one is worth 100,000, aren't we talking about 1.1 million?
Yes,
all
sir.
right, and 40 an assessed valuation of 40% would be a little over 400,000. So if my estimate is right on the average of the houses, we're talking 400,000. If my average is low, and I have no way of knowing that, but house prices have gone up astronomically. If they were 200,000, now we're talking close to 800,000. And if you follow the Fulton County procedure, you're entitled to making twice the amount. So that may increase the number of people that are eligible for this.
Can I get a word in?
Go right ahead, Councilman Gay.
So I can't really comment on all of the dialogue that Councilman Clay is saying, but what I will tell you is that there was a lady who owed approximately $387,000 in Ward 4, and she caught cancer and she missed her payment, and her payment was sold at City Hall by an investor, bought it, and he added on $120,000 to her $300 debt. If this, she would probably have, she probably would be eligible for the exemption, perhaps. But I guess what I'm saying is the human side of the story was simply because I don't get paid to think and talk like he's thinking. the human side of it is, it's not a large amount of people. The majority of them are seniors. They're Black and they're homeowners, and they pay a considerable amount of tax to our great city. You can, as I told attorney today, I gave it my best shot. You can do whatever you want to do with it. From this point forward, I've done my job, and the rest is on you guys.
There an opportunity for the two of you, Councilman Clay, Councilman Gay, to put your heads together, figure out how we get to something that the council can fully support?
Well, if you just do it on the basis of
No, that really was a yes or no question. Can the two of you get together and make this happen?
We can try. I think we're coming from.
I can say yes.
I just have problems. First off, let me just say, it's more than the amount of the money that I'm coming from. It's making bad legislation. This legislation is incorrect. It has lots of problems with it.
Wait, hold on, gentlemen. So Councilman Gay, this is something that you have been spearheading, and I believe the council is behind you. Councilman Clay, you're the one who with the issues primarily. Can we get you together with the city attorney, the three of you, to try to hammer this out and then bring it back to council?
I say yes.
I'm willing to try.
All right, because I don't think we're going
to.
We're not going to resolve it tonight. It doesn't sound like. So go ahead, Councilman Allen.
I just going to say, if anybody else, if Councilman Taylor or myself have questions, we need to bring that up to Councilman Clay and to Councilman Gay, so they can take those questions into account as well. And again, you as well, Mayor, so we can take those into account as well when they're hammering out and trying to do this, because I think it's great. I just think we need to kind of hammer things out.
All right, so we've gotten yeses from the two of you, and Mr. Denmark, you're on board as well.
Yes, ma'am. I do as I'm told.
All right. Any other thoughts, questions, comments on this issue? Hearing none, we do need to enter back into executive session for the purposes of personnel and cybersecurity. So is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Thank you, Councilman Clay. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Allen. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen. That's unanimous. See you on the other link.